What's up guys, Roscoe here. It's time. LYNX versus the rest. What is the difference? We're gonna talk about it today. This snowmobile, as of filming this video right now, has been launched in North America for 14 days, and that's when we made the announcement. And out of those 14 days, I have been on the snow 11 of them, bringing my total to about 2 weeks of ride time on the snowmobile. So I've spent a lot of time on it, probably the most in, I bet I'm the most, unless Jason up in BC has more than I do, my fellow LYNX rider. We are the two that probably have the most time on the snowmobile, and I've been on it. I've been moving. I've ridden in Oregon, I've ridden in Idaho, I've ridden in Montana, and of course I rode in BC back in December when we did the launch video. So I have a lot of time on this thing. I've found my home on it. I'm getting very, very comfortable. I've hit jumps, I've hit drops, I've ridden stupid deep snow, I've ridden just average snow, I've ridden old tracks, creeks, drainages, I've ridden it all in the last 2 weeks, which has been awesome because that's what we gotta do to answer a lot of these questions, is know what it's gonna do in all these different snow conditions. And I needed to take these first 2 weeks to really get my head around it and give you guys proper feedback, because the questions have been out of control. They've been awesome. I appreciate all you guys asking them. We're gonna just dive in, talk about this thing, talk about how it differs from the other models, other snowmobiles in the world. I've ridden all of the 2022 stuff. I was at Snowshoot. I know what's out there. I'm going to give you guys just kind of the rundown on what the differences are and why I'm really enjoying this snowmobile, honestly. So we're gonna start in the back and we'll just work our way up, talking about the differences. That's one of the biggest questions. What the heck's the difference, Ross? Here we go. Starting in the back, obviously, this is the 3900, the snowmobile that I've been riding the most. I also have a handful of days, probably 3 or 4 on the 4100. That is a 165. This is a 154. This is a 2.5 inch track. The 4100 comes with a 3-inch track, so that's gonna be your long track. That probably, it's crazy. This snowmobile does really good in deep snow, I'll tell you that much. So don't count it out when you're buying a sled in the West. This is a really fun sled. I'm just gonna continue to talk about it. So I ordered this snowmobile because I knew I was gonna get it late February, and I figured I might get a couple, deep-ish days, but it's gonna start to turn to spring, and those are gonna be few and far between. Well, let me tell you, a few days ago, I had one of the deepest days ever on a sled in Idaho, and this thing did really well. And honestly, I was really nervous about it because I didn't know, right? I know what I've ridden before. I know what works really well, and I've gotten along with previous sleds very, very well. And I was like, uh-oh, I hope I can go. I hope I don't get stuck everywhere. This thing did very well. It got on top of the snow well. It held edges really well. It was unbelievably fun to ride and confidence inspiring. And I was out of gas in like 4 hours because I was just letting it eat, letting it go. But it gets on top of the snow well, it builds track speed, and the other nice thing, it has the short tunnel. So the short tunnel allows that snowmobile to kind of auger down in there, giving you extra time to get that snowmobile into more of a side hill, and then maybe turn down a little bit if it's stupid deep. But you give this thing a little bit of help, it continues to keep climbing, and you're hopping and moving. And the snowmobile is really for that active rider who loves to ride hard and fast and aggressive, and it just eats it up. One of the biggest things about it that makes this snowmobile what it is, the big difference, is the suspension system. And it's not just the shocks, it's the actual rear skid is crazy different. This is the PPS 2 DS Plus. It's an absolute mouthful. It's also an absolute handful of fun. It's for the guy who likes to hit bumps, hit jumps, ride it all, doesn't matter the conditions. We're going out, we're having fun, and it's been performing really well. So this is a rigid skid, no T-motion. It does have a flex edge track, but it does have its 2 rails that are solid, doesn't do this. I'm a big fan of that because it makes the snowmobile more predictable, in my opinion. That snowmobile wants to hold the line better. It doesn't want to wash out on you in a side hill. When you get into the gnarly technical stuff, it wants to keep going straight, and it kind of reacts to rider input a little bit better. Now, if we're being honest, a little bit harder to initially get on edge, and maybe a little bit less, and a little bit harder to do your pow turns and your stuff like that. But I would much rather trade those 2 little things for a predictable snowmobile that's going to hold an edge, that can handle all of the things that I'm going to throw at it. And that's the MO with LYNX. You've seen the videos, you've seen how we ride these things, and It's built for the gnar. It's built burly, it's built to go get it done. I guarantee you, I'm gonna beat you to the riding zone on this snowmobile. If we leave the parking lot, good luck catching me to that first big meadow with all the pow and the jumps and the pillows, because this thing handles the bumps better than anything else, and I stand by that. Out of the box, this thing eats it up going down the trail. And that's not the point of a mountain snowmobile, but it sure is nice to have that, right? I gotta ride 6 miles of trail. I can do 60 the whole time, no questions, and I'm actually having fun doing it. So that's actually a huge bonus. It's not the point of it. The fact that it can do that is great. It does transfer quite a bit to the rear skid, which makes the front end feel light, but not as light as I had initially thought it could possibly be. It's actually very proficient in the trees, in the gnar, and just going and getting stuff done. You have limiter strap adjustments, so if you don't like it, you can change it really easily, and it's very simple to change. That's one thing about it, is you can make these little adjustments right out of the box that are gonna change the ride, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand how it's going to change the sled. So I made a couple little changes, and honestly, I'm running this how it's going to come out of the factory, and I'm very, very pleased with it, and it is just a great all-arounder. The skid's built to hold up to the abuse, and they've also matched that with great suspension up front. So these are, it comes with KYB stuff all the way around. They're just your mono tube, but they're a very high quality. And like I said, this is the best suspended snowmobile out of the box in the mountain category, because you know how much I love suspension, guys. You know how much I talk about it. It's the first thing you should upgrade. It's, you know, you've seen it for years, right? And they've done a really, really good job at this snowmobile, and that's why the price point is where it is, because it does have some premium stuff on it. Could you even go crazier with suspension? Of course. You know, maybe in the future we will, all of that stuff. I'm still, you know, 14 days on the sled. I'm just getting my head wrapped around it and getting really comfortable, and then we're gonna go from there in the future. I touched a little bit on the short tunnel. Its deep snow capabilities are really good, and LYNX was the first to do it back in 18. They did it over there, and it crept over here, and we started to see it. It is a huge difference. And also, you notice the back of the snowmobile? The bumper is burly. It has some tunnel support back there. All of these things that make it a gnarly snowmobile out of the box for the senders, the go hard guys that like to go get it done. It's just nice. You don't have to do that. You don't have to put a rear bumper on it because you're worried about hitting stuff. And then moving forward, you notice, you look at the snowmobile and you go, it's a Skidoo Gen 4, right? And yes, there's a lot of Gen 4 LYNX Radian things that are the same, but the actual, there's some subtle differences that are gonna make a big difference. They already have made a big difference. Now that I know that, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. The running boards, this versus an Expert, the running boards are actually about almost an inch, maybe a little bit over an inch narrower on each side. So you have narrower running boards in the very front where your feet go. And what that does is it keeps your snowmobile on edge a little bit better. It doesn't give your snowmobile anything to panel out on. So we have a little bit narrower running boards in the front, which is gonna give you better ski contact, better track contact, and help it be a little bit more predictable. There's nothing for it to bounce off. And the funny thing is I love the Expert boards. They are amazing boards. The Skidoo Expert boards and the Polaris boards, they do awesome for traction and snow clearance and all of that. But then when I figured out that these are narrower than the Expert boards, it made me so happy, because it's a big deal to me. How that snowmobile gets on edge and goes through the snow, this thing does it well. It's predictable. That's one thing that I was concerned about as well. I was concerned with the deep snow capability. Was it gonna go? Was it gonna get on top and make speed and go? And then I was also concerned about how capable it was going to be in the really gnarly stuff. Things like the little bit narrower running boards, the rigid skid with the lack of T-motion, or, you know, there's T-motion and the alpha rail that introduces all of this movement. I like something rigid that's going to go straight, that's going to help cut an edge. You have that, you have the running boards, and then the skis as well have been something that I've been slightly, you know, kind of impressed with. I didn't really know what to think about them. I just kind of went in with an open mindset, because I honestly haven't ridden a ton of skis in my riding career. I've ridden the same ones for a long, long time. These skis are super wide, and they're the widest things on the market. They're long ski, they're longer than the Do ski. They have a deep keel, so they're a big aggressive ski. In the deep snow, they get on top of the snow and they stay on top, and I think that might have something to do with this stud's ability to get on top and build speed. They have great flotation. They seem to be pretty predictable through the bumps, going like on a side hill, because they are a little bit more aggressive. You do sometimes get that kind of bump feedback, but after riding this and then hopping on all of the other sleds on the market. We all get that. They all do that. That's just kind of my first thoughts on the ski. They track really well at speed as well. You know, like I was hitting a pretty big jump and just holding it wicked into it as fast as I could go, and the skis were predictable where they were gonna go. Being aggressive like that actually helps kind of with the jumper and stuff, so you're not getting these kind of wobbles or ski push when you're kind of entering something that when you're gonna get airtime, that really does matter, is how is that thing going to drive into the lip of the jump or off the face of something. So I'm going to continue to kind of focus my mind a little bit more on the skis and how they react, so I can give better feedback, not only to you guys and explain how they work and why they work, but also to LYNX engineers to make a better snowmobile in the future. That's something that I'm really excited about with this partnership. Is we're just getting started. How can we make this thing better? How can we make it different? How can we make it a LYNX beast that is true to the name and the mindset of LYNX and what we can do with it? So those are the skis. Suspension's awesome up front as well. You know, something that the snowmobile sits up nice and proud, and I think it's partially, you know, the ski and the suspension and all of that. But then also you notice the styling, different plastics, but a lot of the same kind of DNA as the BRP stuff has in it. I put the shortest riser you can get on it. That's just the way that I like to ride. I like to be kind of bent over the sled like I'm riding a motorcycle more than a snowmobile. It's something that I think a lot of you guys need to continue to do, is put freaking shorter bars on your snowmobiles, guys. They come tall, and not all of us are 6'2", bro. Get the bar thing figured out, and that's something that I'll continue to talk about, but it just gives you more control and leverage and puts you in a better spot as well. So, but I've been very impressed with the ergonomics, the looks, all of that stuff. And one of the biggest things feedback-wise that guys have said is, oh, that thing looks way better in person than it does in photos, which is cool to hear, because you never want it to be the opposite way, right? It's a head turner in all the parking lots. Even guys that don't know what it is, some guys who maybe don't have the internet, I don't know what's going on, they look at it and they go, what the heck is that thing? So lots of parking lot conversations about it. The other thing too, like this is small, but the small things add up. The subtle differences, there's enough of them in this snowmobile that makes it its own beast for sure. So like on the gas tank, it's actually a little bit narrower. It's a little bit more raw finish. There's not a couple pieces that the Do has. So the ergonomics are a little bit different. The way that you interact with the snowmobile, it feels really narrow up towards your knees, around the tank and stuff like that. So it gives you that ability to lean and move with the sled and really have a fun, active ride that is very enjoyable. That's kind of the gist of the ergonomics on it. I've really enjoyed the bar setup. I love the grips. It comes with a brake reservoir cover. So some stuff like that's really handy, making the snowmobile one that you can truly go buy and ride right out of the box and have a great time all season long. So I've kind of given you guys a rundown of the snowmobile, the differences, and now let's compare. How does the ride different than the other manufacturers, the other things out there? And I've ridden the 2022s of everything. I've ridden the new Polaris, I've ridden the new Cat, I've ridden the new Do, I've ridden the new LYNX. That is great because I can actually talk truthfully about how they all compare, how they all stack up, what are the differences. For the sake of this, we're going to leave the turbos out of it because we obviously don't have a turbo in this model. We're gonna leave the Do turbo out of it, we're gonna leave the new Polaris turbo out of it, because once you start adding that much horsepower, things change a little bit. The argument changes, the comparison changes. There's a lot of us out there that aren't turbo guys, and this is where the conversation needs to be held for the time being, is what the heck is the difference, what makes it ride different, all of those things. So I kind of think of it as you have Polaris over here. I've spent a lot of time on those snowmobiles. You guys know that I've gotten along really well with them. I got this far riding them. I've done some incredible things on them. They're a great snowmobile. Everybody's making a kick-ass snowmobile, which is awesome for us, for you guys, because the competition is heated. They're going at each other. They're trying to one-up each other all the time. Riders are trying to figure out how they can make their manufacturer's sled better to one up the competition the next year, all of it. It's always going down. It's awesome that we have this, and we're gonna talk about kind of the differences. So we have Polaris over here, and then we have Do over here, and there's a huge difference. You ask anybody who has been a longtime Skidoo rider or a longtime Polaris rider, and you ask them to hop on the other snowmobile, and they're going to look like a fish out of water for just a moment because of the steering differences, the T-motion, the flex edge, the rigid skids of the Polaris, the upright steering of the Polaris, the rider position. All of these things Even the way the sled wants to be ridden is different. A Polaris wants to be ridden with a lot more handlebar input, and it's easy, good handlebar input, and the Do wants to be ridden with a lot more foot control, foot input, so a little bit less steering. If you get off a Polaris and get on a Do and start to steer hard like you would on a Polaris and fast, the snowmobile is going to kind of go like this, right? You get on a Polaris after hopping off of a Do or even a LYNX a little bit, and you start to just ride with your feet, and the Polaris isn't going to react. It's going to be slow. It needs a little bit more steering input. So it's just different, right? We're just talking about the differences here. The LYNX is kind of, for me, finding its position right in the middle of these snowmobiles. It's a different thing that sits in the middle. So talking about the differences in all of the snowmobiles, it's not like the mountain bike industry or the moto industry where the bikes are relatively the same. Maybe there's a few degrees in difference and the ergonomics are slightly different, but you can hop off one onto the other and it doesn't feel like it's a totally different snowmobile, or a totally different like foreign object. Whereas snowmobiling can feel that way. You hop off one onto the other and you're like, oh my God, this thing can't even ride this thing. It's so hard to ride because I'm not used to it. It's just a different way. We kind of have, and I like to compare I'm comparing Do and Polaris because I have the most time on those snowmobiles, right? I have a lot of time on both chassis like that. And I'll bring LYNX back into this, right? I'm just setting up the scene here for you guys. We have Polaris on the left, we have Do on the right. Over here, they're two different riding styles. They blend into the middle. Everything, we all can get the job done. We all enjoy what we like to ride, the terrain we like to ride. But as they come into the middle, that's where LYNX lives. It's this thing, right? It has a rigid skid like a Polaris. It has steering like a Skidoo. It has wide skis. Polaris has wide skis. We're even wider and bigger and more aggressive over here. It has a lot of the Do fit and finish, the chassis, the motor feel, all of that, right? That's all kind of the same. A lot of things are similar there. Has short tunnel. Now both manufacturers have short tunnels. We have that in there as well. It's just this snowmobile that then the thing that sets it apart, Roscoe's favorite thing, is the bad boy suspension and just durability of the snowmobile that you can rip on this thing. So that's kind of how you got to think about it. Its own beast in the middle that is kind of pushing a little bit different direction than the Skidoo that everybody is so familiar with. So if you're a guy out there and you're looking for a new sled, a 2022, this is my pitch to you. This is what I think you should think about. Now, if you're a turbo guy and you're gonna go drop the money on a turbo, then that's one thing because we don't have a turbo to offer you. If you love the good suspension, you wanna go hit bumps, jumps, maybe you've ridden Skidoo for a long time and maybe you're not the biggest fan of the T-Motion, but you like how the sled handles, you like the feel of it, you like the ergonomics, you like the motor, the fit and the finish, then this is a potentially awesome snowmobile for you. We have the short tunnel, it does the bow ties, it does the re-entries, all of that stuff. It flies like a freaking rocket ship. Oh my gosh. And you know, it's funny, I understand why a lot of the guys in the past, the big jump guys have been on this chassis because after you get comfortable flying this thing, it flies really well. It's very comfortable to jump big. I've really enjoyed it for that. I feel like I'm rambling at this point, but just trying to kind of cover everything, compare it to other snowmobiles. I hope that kind of makes sense where this thing lies. It's something that really needs to be considered if you're thinking about it because this thing is sick, man. We've raised some hell this year. We've opened some eyes. People are very curious and it's worth a shot. It's worth a try. You know, if you ride like me or you kind of like the style I ride or if anything kind of resonates with you, I'm like, man, I do wish I had some badass suspension to go like rip down the trail and then go huck some jumps. See you on the LYNX, bro. You also might be the guy that likes to ride the gnarly technical stuff and you've ridden a Do for a long time, but maybe the T-Motion kind of, you're not a huge fan of it. It might hinder you here or there and you want to try something else. Like this is it. This is what you should try because it has that DNA, but man, it doesn't have as much as people think. It's a different ride. It's funny because that's one of our kind of the whole LYNX project of bringing it over here, one of the things that we like to talk about is it's just different. Yesterday, I let one of my friends ride it and he pulls up and he goes, he's a Do rider and he goes, man, it's just different. Like it's just something new. It's something different. So with all that being said, guys, thanks for watching. I hope that made sense. Just trying to cover it all. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments If I don't answer it, it's probably because I'm going to make a video about it very shortly. I'm trying to give you guys as much value as possible for everybody. So thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. New vlogs coming soon. The madness on the LYNX. We had helis in the air. Crazy, just madness going on. So it's gonna be fun. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed. See you later.